So it's a 2:30 kickoff in Austin, and Texas really needs a home game right now because their program, Vince Lombardi said it best. You can learn a line from a victory and a book from defeat, and I think Texas learned an entire Charles Dickens novel on last Saturday in that loss to Oklahoma State. 38-35 in Stillwater to an Oklahoma State team that just doesn't look like a typical Oklahoma State team this year. They lost a lot of senior talent last offseason. Mike Gundy's still manning that program, but they lost 31-12 to Kansas State. They got wrecked by Texas Tech at home at night. And Oklahoma State makes a statement win over Texas, and a lot of that was because they were able to establish a 31-14 lead early. And a lot of the criticism right now is on Tom Herman. Tom Herman suspended Texas cornerbacks, their starting cornerbacks Devontae Davis and Chris Boyd for the first quarter of that Oklahoma State game for being late to team functions. And it was pretty obvious how much Texas needed their cornerbacks because Oklahoma State wide receiver Tylan Wallace had 222 yards on 10 receptions and 2 touchdowns. He was dominant, but he was dominant when the cornerbacks were out of the game, and he was dominant when the cornerbacks were in the game. Texas couldn't stop them. Oklahoma State now is 5-3, just one game behind Texas in the overall record standings. So maybe the Cowboys in Texas are closer than we actually thought they were this year after that game. But I think 2 other things we learned about Texas this year are TCU and USC. If you saw those teams Saturday, TCU and USC are classified as ranked wins for Texas, but are those even quality wins anymore? TCU's 3-5 and became the first Big 12 team to lose to Kansas since Charlie Strong's Longhorns did in 2016. USC's a middling 4-4, getting shellacked by Utah. Then they lost at home to Arizona State, another middling 4-4 program. So now all Texas has really in their favor is that Oklahoma game. But the Longhorns still control their own destiny heading into West Virginia, and I think that's really important for the Longhorns to get back on track. They control their own destiny in the Big 12 because they have that key tiebreaker over Oklahoma. But if they lose their second Big 12 game to West Virginia, I think you can almost end their Big 12 title hope chances because Oklahoma would probably beat West Virginia. I mean, that game could be a toss-up. Oklahoma's really looking like they're turning the corner right now, and that would be West Virginia's second conference loss. And with 2 conference losses apiece, West Virginia would get in over Texas. So this game is monumental for the Longhorns. Can they stop Will Grier? They couldn't stop Taylor Cornelius, and Taylor Cornelius didn't have a really good season up until last week. Can they stop Will Grier, who absolutely trounced Baylor last week in a 58-14 win? Will Grier, only Iowa State was able to contain him really this year. And I just don't know if Texas's defense can do it. Will Grier, he has David Sills the 5th, one of the best receivers at getting open in the nation, always in the end zone. He's always open in the end zone. Sills is always on those leaders for touchdown receptions of the nation. Texas's cornerbacks have to come back and have the game of their life against Grier, Sills, Gary Jennings, and the rest of that West Virginia passing offense. Now, offensively, Texas needs to have a better game from the running backs and both Sam Ehlinger alike. Ehlinger did play despite a shoulder injury, which marked him questionable for last game, and he now has thrown 210 passes without an interception, which is pretty good and still playing in Texas's favor. But Texas needs a better performance than a 22 for 42 from Ehlinger, and it was just an average offensive performance. The Longhorns didn't wake up until late in the game, and playing from behind, just like in the Maryland game, it came in to bite them again. But Texas can't afford to do any of that against West Virginia, who's a top 15 team, and with the best offense they've seen since Oklahoma.
We got Steve Helwick on the line. You can catch him either on SB Nation at Hustle Belt, where he covers MAC football, also at the University of Texas, where he works for the campus TV station there at the University of Texas, also the Daily Texan, covering Texas. And, of course, the Longhorns have a huge one against West Virginia, both teams with 1 loss. In the conference, of course, Texas dropped that one in game 1 against Maryland. So, Steve, you know what the narrative here is in regards to offensive and defensive strength. It's West Virginia's all offense, not much defense, and it's Texas all defense, not much offense. But that is way overblown, of course. Sam Ehlinger has developed his game immensely this year. And I've seen a lot of Texas football this year, not as much as you. I don't even watch the Tulsa games, but I watch the big games, and they played a whole lot of big games. So I've seen the TCU game, and I saw last week's game, and on and on and on, USC and Oklahoma as well. And Ellinger is just such a better passer and decision maker. He's banged up, as you talked about. The running games come to life a little bit more so this year than it was deplorable last year. And he's been able to take advantage of the two threats that he has on the outside in Colin Johnson and little Jordan-Humphrey. That's been a major difference. But the West Virginia defense isn't as bad as people think. It's actually pretty good, and the Texas offense better than it's been generally in recent years. So how do you shake this one up? How are you handicapping this one at this point?
I agree with both points you said. I think West Virginia's defense does get underlooked a lot. They have some good talent there. Outside linebacker David Long's very good leading that defense. And then Texas has Ellinger's not the most consistent quarterback, but he can make good plays with his legs a lot, and sometimes in the passing game. He threw a beautiful deep ball last week to Andrew Beck, and sometimes he'll just make plays like that work really well in Texas's favor. But I'm thinking this game's going to be, I'll say, in the high 20s, maybe low 30s in terms of what we're going to see on the scoreboard in Austin on Saturday. I think it'll be a back and forth, and I think West Virginia wins this one by one possession. It's going to be an intense top 15 matchup, and I'm giving Texas about a few more points with the game being at DKR Stadium in Austin rather than in Morgantown. Texas did win this game last year in Morgantown, but Will Grier left the game with a key injury right as West Virginia was about to take the lead, never returned, and it was so obvious how important Will Grier was to the team, just watching that West Virginia offense for the rest of the game. Now with Will Grier, I think West Virginia has that game on their mind still. Dana Holgorsen has that game on his mind still, and they're coming into Austin with fire. They realize that Iowa State game 2 weeks ago, I think it was 2 weeks ago, that they're still coming back from that. And they showed that vengeance last week against Baylor. I think they're going to try to show that against Texas.
Steve Helwig joining us from, again, the Daily Texan and the University of Texas campus TV station there, talking Longhorns and Mountaineers, a huge one in Austin on Saturday. And, of course, you can catch Steve as well covering MAC football at SB Nation's Hustle Belt. Steve, we appreciate you stopping by. Enjoy all the football this weekend.